Happy African History Month. Welcome to Escaping the Echo Chamber. It's February 2nd, 2021, and we're talking about Black Wall Street, also known as Greenwood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. The name Black Wall Street was a nickname given to it because of the prosperous society that was built of the black residents there, by and for the black residents there. And a lot of people are familiar now with the Tulsa Massacre. I myself didn't learn about this in school. I learned about this when I was an adult and we were doing these Black history gatherings. And it was shocking. This is early 1900s, where you have this kind of thriving, economically vibrant community that existed, and it was a black community. But it's one of those things that I like to talk about because it shows the capabilities. It's an example of what is possible. So instead of just looking at the worst case scenario of, well, from slavery to McDonald's, like I talked about earlier. No, like there's so much more that could have been done. There's so much more that was done, and now that here we are in 2021, there's so much more we can do. But let's get to the story, and I'm going to start with the massacre. Normally, I would end with the massacre, but that's not what I want to focus on. So you have this thriving black town, and it's attacked. June 1st, 1921, the neighboring white townspeople decide to just destroy this town completely. Hundreds are murdered. Thousands, after everything is over, are put in internment camps. And even during the riot, they actually go to the airport, get airplanes, and start bombing the town. Start dropping incendiary devices on the town. And it's, even though this wasn't something that was well known like when I was growing up, it is really, it's really great to see that this is something that is back in the public consciousness, that has entered the public consciousness, because there are people who are survivors, who are descendants of people that were there, and they refuse to let this just be, tossed into the dustbin of history. And it gets to the point where even popular television shows have talked about this and dealt with the issue. So you've got the series Watchmen, and they incorporated, it's a fictional series, but they incorporated the actual events of this massacre within the series. And that is something that's really powerful, because it makes sure that people don't just forget it and pretend it didn't happen. But I actually want to talk about what Black Wall Street was before the massacre. O.W. Gurley, he decided, he was a businessman, an entrepreneur, and he says, okay, I'm going to build something. I want to build a black community for black people where we can prosper together. He buys 40 acres, and that's where he begins setting up this town. He's inviting other individuals to come join him. So in addition to, prominent individuals, workers, hey, if you're tired of dealing with a lot of the nonsense, come on to this town. And that's what he did. And one of the things he was doing was he was actually giving people a chance to move up. So people that didn't have money, didn't have established businesses, come on, I'll loan you money to start your business. And one of the individuals that was a prominent member that came was J.B. Stratford. And he himself was, he had his own businesses, and he also believed in black people pooling resources to uplift one another. Another name not to be forgotten is A.J. Smitherman. He owned the newspaper, and it was part of, he owned one of the most prominent newspapers in the town, and it was responsible for the socially conscious mindset that existed around the town. I mean, because controlling the media is crucial. Controlling your own media to make sure that you can put out the messages you need to your people, and that's in the best interest of yourself and your community, as opposed to some outside community controlling everything you see and hear, and making sure that everything you see and hear is to their benefit. Yes, so J.B. Stratford owned a luxury hotel. O.W. Gurley owned the local grocery store, and he supplied the grocery store with supplies from his own farm. And A.J. Smitherman had, the newspaper. In addition to this, you had hotels, movie theaters, schools, a thriving school system that educated black kids to be excellence, to exhibit black excellence. You had so many things that, like I said, the offices of doctors, dentists, lawyers, black doctors, black dentists, black lawyers. All of this existed within this ecosystem in the 1900s, early 1900s. At the height of, you've got so much overt, blatant racism, and not just casual racism, not just personal and private racism, public, government-sponsored, enacted racism existed, and still these black men and women managed to build a thriving community. Like that right there, and that's why I say I don't want to just focus on Tulsa Massacre, because if you focus on the actual existence of Greenwood, of Black Wall Street, you're like, wait a minute. Just look around. Like I live here in the Bronx, and I look around. Like, why, with all of the advancements that have been made, with all of the and so social and legal advancements that have been made, but then add that to the technological advancements, how are there not 1,000 Black Wall Streets in the United States right now? And that's because we're not paying attention. We're not focusing on the things that, and like I said, this story isn't something that was taught in school, but the information is there. It's there for us to look at. It's there for us to learn from, and it's there for us to replicate and improve upon. But of course, you can't forget how it ended. So that was the Tulsa Massacre. Was one of the most devastating things to this community, but there was an attempt to rebuild. There was another attack that wasn't as obvious, and it's not regarded as, because a lot of people just think Tulsa Massacre, that's it, it's over, Greenwood ceased to exist. No, Greenwood attempted to rebuild. It wasn't at its prior strength, but what ultimately killed Greenwood was government policies. They came in and said, "Oh, we need to break stuff down and build public works projects. Oh, we need to build infrastructure through." And they built a highway through the community. I mean, these are the kinds of things that we need to be focused on. Like, that's the purpose of learning history. Because to make sure it doesn't happen again, to make sure we guard against it happening again, to make sure we know what was done right, and not even what was done wrong, but what protections, what preparations could and should be made, and better be in place. Because if we're going to build black wealth, if we're going to build a vibrant black community that is economically just light years ahead of what we see in our inner cities today, hey, in just so many black communities, like I said, here in the Bronx, Bronx is one of the poorest. It's definitely the poorest in New York City, the poorest borough. But like, there's certain areas of the Bronx that they're saying like the poorest. There's a district in the Bronx they say it's the poorest district in the country. I'm like, wow, like this is like, there's no way, there's no reason why that should be occurring today. There's no reason why we should be as far back today as we are. And that's why I think it's so crucial to remember stories like this, to talk about stories like this, and to just really understand what went into building this community and say, okay, we can do the same thing now. And that's why I love what, Killer Mike, and I'm not sure, and I've got to do more research about who's behind it. I know Killer Mike is one of the advocates of it, of the banking Greenwood. I've seen Jesse Martin, I believe his name is. Jesse Williams. Yeah, Jesse Williams, sorry. Jesse Williams, he's been in some commercials for it. And so I want to know where this Greenwood banking is, and it doesn't even need to be physically located, because now you can do online banking. So I mean, it's something that can be participated in right now, and that doesn't have to be the only Black Wall Street being created. That doesn't have to be the only Greenwood. We can be building Greenwoods in every city, like we really should. Like, there's no reason why not to, especially if you're in a system that, if we're in a country where systemic racism continues to be a thing, continues to put obstacles in the way of our, and never mind the adults at this point, but continues to put obstacles in the way of our black youth. We can say, okay, fuck the system. We got you. We got you. We're building something for you to thrive in. We're building schools that will educate you, that will give you financial education, that will teach you, help you get to reach excellence, heights of excellence, not just train you for mediocrity. We've got businesses that, boom, right out of school, you can get a job. You can learn how to get along in the corporate world. You can come into businesses where we're not just hiring you to sweep a floor. When you're coming out of high school, you could be getting junior executive jobs, learning to run your own businesses. Like, there's no reason, after all we've seen, after the blueprints have been laid by others before us. The blueprints are there. We got to follow it. Thank you for checking out this episode of Escaping the Echo Chamber. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you tomorrow.